Hello, parents. Welcome to a Parents Night Out presentation brought to you by SAMHSA. My name is Sergio. I'm a prevention educator with Mutual Ground.
And my name is Carly. I'm also a prevention educator with Mutual Ground.
And the objective of this presentation is to inform parents and caregivers of the dangers of underage drinking and other drug use, as well as prepare them to have important conversations. We're going to start off today's presentation with a self-reflection. So what made you decide to attend today? Was it because you have concerns about current behavior? You have concerns about future behavior? You want to learn more about the topic? Or you want to learn conversational skills to use with your children on a variety of topics? Now, I want to note that in this presentation, we will be using the terms other substance use and other drug use, and this refers to the use of marijuana and other illicit drugs, prescription drug use and abuse, as well as cigarette smoking and vaping. So some important facts are that among people 12 or older in the year 2020, more than 50% used tobacco, alcohol, or an illicit drug in the past month. Alcohol and other drug use during teen years can interfere with normal brain development and increase the risk of developing a use disorder. And lastly, injury and violence related to drug use is one of the leading causes of death for teenagers. 47% of children who begin drinking before the age of 14 develop an alcohol use disorder at some point in their lives. Here we have a similar statistic, except it's almost the opposite, where 9% of youth who do not drink alcohol before the age of 21 develop an alcohol use disorder in their lifetime. I also want to note that some additional research has found that 90% of Americans who meet the clinical criteria for addiction started using substances before the ages of 18. Very important that parents and caregivers are aware of the factors that may increase the risk of your child using alcohol and other drugs. But also keep in mind that children can be easily influenced by viewing adult role models, alcohol, or any other drug behavior. Even though you may feel some of these factors can be out of your control, there are things you can do to help your child. When it comes to stress, it's very important that we encourage children to join sports or any after-school activities and remind them that drinking or using drugs will not help them escape their problems. With peer pressure, it's very important that you remind your children of different ways to say no. The more strategies they have, the better prepared they can to address a situation and where they're being pressured. Transitions. This can be from things like changing of grades, new friends, or even moving. Very important that you remind your children that things will always get easier and that, again, drug use is not going to be the answer to their problems. Here we have some very important and interesting facts that relate to COVID-19. So alcohol sales in stores went up 21% during the first 7 weeks of lockdown, while online sales more than doubled. A California investigation found that delivery services are often delivering alcohol to youth under the age of 21. So these companies are not checking thoroughly to make sure that these people purchasing are over the age of 21. And lastly, U.S. retail marijuana sales rose 46% in 2020 and are expected to reach 37 billion by 2024.
So now that we've talked about some really interesting facts and just things to keep in mind, we have another one of these self-reflection questions. So the self-reflection question 2 is, have you noticed any changes in your child's or children's attitude and or behavior regarding underage substance use since the pandemic began? So either, yeah, they seem more interested, yeah, they seem less interested, no, they haven't noticed, or you haven't noticed any changes, or you're not quite sure. So just another thing to think about. So, into our next point. So, start talking with your child early and often. So, while it's never too late to have conversations with your child about alcohol and other drugs, it's also never too early to start these conversations. The best time to start talking with your child about alcohol and other drugs is before he or she is exposed. At Mutual Ground, our substance use prevention starts as early as fourth and fifth grade. That was what we just got approved for, and it's been going really great so far. So, as early as you can. If you approach the conversation directly and honestly, your child's more likely to respect your rules and invite and advice about alcohol and other drug use. And lots of little talks keep the lines of communication open and work better than one big talk. So a lot less stress when you're having those mini conversations. And then also treating your child like a partner in the conversation and trying to imagine how they would feel would really help them hear what you have to say. So did you know that approximately 80% of children believe their parents should have a say in whether they drink alcohol? But talking about it can be very difficult. So your children, they're listening. What will you say? It may not seem like it, but research shows that young people really do listen when their parents to what their parents have to say about alcohol and other drug use, especially if you're having often conversations.
Awesome. Yeah, getting that conversation started, very, very important, but it's going to be very, very beneficial. Now we move on to our self-reflection number 3, which asks, how prepared do you feel to talk with your child about underage drinking and other drug use? Very prepared, somewhat unprepared, or not prepared at all. Research suggests that one of the most important factors in a healthy child's development is a strong, open relationship with a parent. It's most important to start talking with your child about alcohol and other drug use before they are exposed to them. So use these 5 conversational goals to help you get started. But remember to keep it low key. Don't worry, you don't have to get to everything across in one talk. Plan to check in often with quick chats and keep the lines of communication open.
Yeah, so the first goal is to show you disapprove of underage drinking and other drug use. So over 80% of young people ages 10 to 18 say their parents have an impact on their decision whether to drink. So don't assume they know how you feel about drinking and using drugs. Send a clear and strong message that you disapprove of underage drinking and other drug use.
Number 2 is show you care about your children's health, wellness, and success. Young people are more likely to listen when they know you're on their side. Remind your children why you don't want them to drink or use any other drugs, because you want them to be happy and safe. The conversation will go a lot better if you're open and show your concern for their well-being.
Conversation goal 3 is to show you're a good source of information about alcohol and other drugs. So you want your child to make informed decisions about alcohol and other drugs with reliable information about their risks and their dangers. You don't want him or her to learn about alcohol and other drugs from bad sources of information. Make sure they know you are a trustworthy source of information.
Yep. Conversation goal number 4 is show you're paying attention and will try to keep them from drinking and using drugs. Young people are more likely to drink alcohol or use other drugs if they think no one will notice. Show that you're aware of what your child is up to, but do this in a subtle way and try not to pry. If you ask about friends and plans, it's because you care, not because you're judging. They are more likely to talk with you openly.
Yep. And then the last conversation goal is to build your children's skills and strategies for avoiding alcohol and other drugs. So even if you don't think your children want to drink alcohol or try drugs, pressure from their friends can make it hard for them to say no. Having a plan to avoid underage drinking and other drug use can help children make better choices. Talk with your children about what they would do if faced with a decision about alcohol and other drugs. Practice saying no thanks with them in a safe environment and keep it low key, just so that they get that practice under their belt.
Prepare for the talks. Decide where and when to talk to your child about alcohol and other drugs. Consider using everyday opportunities like in the car, during dinner, or while you and your child are watching TV. And remember that having lots of little talks takes the pressure of needing to say everything in one long discussion, and your child will be less likely to tune you out.
So this next section, we're going to talk about some of the tough questions that your child might have and, discuss what you could possibly say. So for that first one, they might say, why are alcohol and other drugs bad for me? So rather than scaring your children, tell them that alcohol and other drugs are bad for their growing brain and can make them sick. So just giving them the facts. The next one, I got invited to a party. Can I go? Remind your children of the rules around alcohol and other drugs and the behavior that you expect. You can also ask your child if an adult will be present at the party or if he or she thinks children will be drinking or using drugs. The next one, they might ask, what if my friends ask me to drink or use drugs? Helping your child say no to peer pressure is one of the most important things that you can do as a parent, kind of like what we talked about before. So work with your child to think of ways that he or she can handle different situations as a teenager in a safe space. And then the next one, they might say, did you drink or use drugs when you were a kid? So make sure to emphasize that we now know even more about the risks to children who drink and use other drugs. And if you did drink or alcohol or use other substances as a teenager, be honest. Tell them what you know and that you know that it was risky and dangerous and kind of give them the facts. That can also help build credibility that you do know what you're talking about and you do know the mistakes that can happen.
Awesome. Congratulations, you had the first conversation with your child. Well done. Remember that children can't learn all they need to know from a single chat, so keep them talking. And it's also very important that as children get older, the conversation changes. Some of the information you would share with a 9-year-old will be different from a 13-year-old. So it's very important that you keep the information age appropriate, and as they get older, you give them more information and remind them of your agreement. So the Talk They Hear You is a parent-focused national media campaign that provides tools and resources to help you. This campaign is run by the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration and was launched in 2013. So the Talk They Hear You campaign products include things like TV, radio, and print public service announcements. And the campaign also has a website at www.talktheyhearyou.samhsa.gov. And the website, you can find things like fact sheets, brochures, and infographics, posters, postcards, and a mobile application, which we'll talk a little bit more about. These materials show parents using everyday opportunities to talk with their children about alcohol and other drug use, and include tools to help parents start these conversations on their own. So now we will be showing you an example of one of the public service announcements. This one's titled By Your Side, and it shows the important roles parents play throughout the child's life from the first day of school to the last day and beyond.
I'll be here to hear what's on your mind. Take this time to talk and get it right. You know I'll be there all your life. When you need me, I'll be by your side. By your side. And every day is a different day. Everything is in everything. Even when you think things can never ever be the same. Don't be scared of the world, I'll be here to stay. By your side. Even when your heart ain't listening, or your mind takes you a different way, towards a different path. All you gotta do is sit and ask. When you need me, I'll be by your side.
When the adults in a child's life talk early and often about the dangers of underage drinking, the message gets stronger every time.
I'll be by your side.
Talk. They hear you.
Okay, so this next part that we're going to talk about are some more tools to help. So this is the mobile app. So the newest iteration of the Talk They Hear You mobile app goes beyond virtual practice sessions to equip parents with the skills and tools they need to confidently have conversations about alcohol and other drugs with their children. This mobile app is available on Android, iOS, and Windows devices. And this is kind of a sneak peek of what it looks like. So with this second part of it, so practice scenarios share conversation starters, goals, possible reactions, closers, and other helpful information like statistics on the prevalence of underage drinking and other drug use. These scenarios begin with the PSA from the Talk They Hear You campaign, showing parents talking with their child about alcohol and other drugs based on one of the 5 campaign goals that we had kind of discussed earlier. This scenario is then broken down to help you understand and plan for conversations of your own. You can earn badges for completing practice sessions or practice scenarios and for having actual conversations. And then at the end of each scenario, you can record your own practice conversation and take a self-assessment, which I think is really awesome to actually get that practice and hear yourself saying the words out loud. So after exploring the app's practice scenarios and resources tabs, you can practice each conversation goal. So a recording feature allows you to record a practice conversation and play it back to hear how you would sound to your child. And then the self-assessment lets you rate yourself on how well you achieved that conversation goal. From the practice screen as well, you can also add reminders to your actual digital calendar to help remind you to have those conversations with your children. So physically, something in your phone that most people carry around every day that'll say, hey, today's the day that you need to have another small conversation, just another thing to add on top of everything. And then with that, we have another quick video that kind of goes more in depth of this app. So we'll play that now.
Are you prepared for the most important conversations you'll ever have? Everyday moments are great times to talk with your kids about underage drinking and other drug use, because talking early and often lets them know your expectations, reinforces your message over time, and promotes ongoing open dialogue instead of just one big talk. But what do you say? And how do you say it? The Talk They Hear You mobile app is your guide to get informed, be prepared, and take action to talk with your kids about underage drinking and other drug use. The app is designed for parents and other caregivers, educators, and community members who play important roles in children's lives, like coaches, faith leaders, and others. The app provides guidance for talking with kids in a range of situations so that you can be prepared to talk about underage drinking and other drug use when opportunities arise. For each different scenario, the app helps you set a goal and gives you suggestions for how to start the conversation with your child. And it also helps you anticipate what your kid might say when you bring up these subjects, helping you plan responses in advance to keep the conversation on track. When you're ready, the app lets you practice and record yourself so that you can review what you said and make adjustments if needed. Remember, talking about underage drinking and other drug use works best when it happens naturally in everyday conversation, so practice several different situations. The app also puts additional resources at your fingertips, useful information about alcohol and other drugs, and how to help your child stay safe. So download the Talk They Hear You mobile app today from the App Store, Google Play, or Microsoft Store, and see how easy it can be to talk with your kids about underage drinking and other drug use. Because when you talk, they hear you.
So this brings us to the end of our presentation. We encourage any questions that you might have to please email Carly or I, and we'll be more than happy to answer any questions. And also, don't forget that you can find a lot more information on the Talk They Hear You website. Just go to talktheyhearyou.samhsa.gov. And you can also email any questions about the campaign, any questions directly to SAMHSA at underage.drinking@samhsa.gov. And you can also sign up to receive emails from the campaign, things like updates, updated materials. You can subscribe to that by sending an email to underage.drinking@samhsa.gov to sign up.
And if you want any more further information or any further, facts or anything like that, feel free to reach out to us as well. We've got a whole lot of knowledge.
And we please ask you that if you enjoyed this presentation, if you found any bit of information valuable, to please take a short survey. This short survey is for us, for Carly and I, to see what went well, what didn't go so well. So if you could please take a minute of your time to scan this QR code and take the short survey, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you so much.